A federal grand jury has indicted former FBI Director James Comey. The DOJ is charging him with one count of making false statements to Congress and one count of obstruction of justice. It's all related to testimony he gave in front of the Senate nearly 5 years ago. Now, in a video message posted to social media, Comey says he's not backing down. Watch.
My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial and keep the faith.
All right. President Trump commented about the indictment this morning on Truth Social, calling Comey, quote, a dirty cop who made a, quote, very serious and far-reaching lie for which a very big price must be paid. I want to bring in CBS News Justice correspondent Scott MacFarlane. Scott, remind us of what's in this indictment and explain the charges, and also remind our viewers that one of the charges that the U.S. attorney was looking to indict Comey on, the grand jury didn't even choose to do that.
If you blink, you might miss this charging document. It is just that short. It is barely a page and a half. It's boilerplate language, and it's just two charges without an explanation about the granular details behind each one. One of them is a false statements charge. One of them is an obstruction charge. Both of them are federal criminal charges, but we don't have a whole lot of meat on the bones in the charging instrument submitted by this new acting U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia, this longtime Trump confidant and aide, Lindsay Halligan, who's now the U.S. attorney. James Comey will appear before a federal judge in Alexandria, Virginia, October 9th for an arraignment in the case. Federal cases tend to move slowly. You measure them in months and years, not in days and weeks. But this case so far has very little detail behind the allegations. We know from our reporting this stems from testimony he gave before a Senate panel 5 years ago next week in September 2020 about media leaks of information stemming from a federal investigation. Comey has said declaratively, Vlad, that he is innocent and that he looks forward to trial.
You also have some reporting on the office that brought this indictment forward. Break it down.
The Eastern District of Virginia, which is the Washington, D.C. suburbs in Virginia, one of the largest, most powerful federal prosecutor offices in America, more than 100 federal prosecutors there, many hundreds of staff. This is a powerhouse inside the U.S. Department of Justice. The president ousted its prior leadership last weekend, somebody he appointed shortly after taking over the presidency, amid concerns that former prosecutor, Eric Siebert, wasn't pushing forward with a case, including against James Comey. The newly installed Lindsay Halligan, succeeding Eric Siebert there, moved forward with it herself. It's her name on the charging documents. That is uncommon, Vlad, for a U.S. attorney to be the only name on a charging document. Uncommon not to have others in the office getting behind this. And that's going to be one of the questions moving forward. Are other career civil servants going to get behind this effort? And what about the person, the longtime assistant U.S. attorney who resigned last night in protest of this case? Will there be more resignations today and this weekend?
And Scott, before we let you go, whose name is on that indictment? Which U.S. attorney's name is on that indictment?
Yeah, it is the acting U.S. attorney, Lindsay Halligan, her name only. Usually you'll have a line prosecutor and the U.S. attorney signing a document. Sometimes multiple attorneys will get involved. Right now, she's the only person putting her name on this case. Got to watch to see if that changes in the days ahead.
Yeah, indeed. All right, Scott MacFarlane for us, reporting from our bureau in Washington. Scott, thank you very much. Joining me now is CBS News legal contributor Caroline Polisi. Caroline, so what will prosecutors and Comey's lawyers argue?
Yeah, well, prosecutors, as we know, have charged 2 counts, making a false statement in that congressional testimony, and then obstruction of a congressional investigation. And basically what they have to prove is that Comey made this statement knowingly, that he lied knowingly. And it's a little complicated. It's nuanced what exactly we're talking about here, but essentially it's that 2020 testimony referring back to something that happened in 2017, a leak from his deputy, Andy McCabe, to the Wall Street Journal. So it's a little bit complicated. We might have to parse some words here, but I think the defense, the first motion you will see by the defense is one for a selective and or vindictive prosecution based on that Truth Social post that Trump made prior to this indictment, and then basically a congratulations post after. By all accounts, it does appear that he couldn't find any prosecutor to prosecute this case that was in the office prior, so he installed somebody from the inside that was willing to do this. You know, as Scott noted, she's been on the job since Monday. She has never prosecuted a case before, and there isn't. It's shocking that there's not a single assistant United States attorney in that office. There are many in that office that would not sign on to this case. Very unusual for the acting United States attorney to present a case to the grand jury and to be the one to sign that indictment.
Yeah, very unusual indeed. Remind me, you and I were talking about this earlier, how a grand jury makes a decision as to whether or not to indict someone. The bar is incredibly low.
Yeah, that's right. We've all heard that old adage, you can indict a ham sandwich, because it is quite easy to obtain a grand jury indictment, and that's because it is the lowest standard we have in the criminal law. It's just whether you move forward with an indictment not beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the standard we always hear in a criminal case. That's to actually convict. But in the grand jury, it's just probable cause. However, the ethical obligation of prosecutors are not to move forward with an indictment unless they believe that the evidence is in fact strong enough to not only obtain a conviction, but maintain one on appeal at that higher level of beyond a reasonable doubt. So you go to the grand jury, you know, it's a lower standard of probable cause, but you have to have faith that you have enough evidence. And there's been some reporting that others in that office did not feel that ethically they could in good faith go to the grand jury because there was not enough evidence to meet that higher threshold.
All right, so he's set to be arraigned next month, Comey. How long is this likely to take?
It could move pretty quickly. I don't know if you've seen this indictment. It's very bare bones. It's not that complicated. It's one statement. You know, the reporting suggests that there was another statement that was presented to the grand jury. They voted no bill on that one. So we're just talking about one statement, again, which we can sort of glean by how it's phrased, has to do with the, the leaking of information and or the authorization of the leaking of information way back in 2016, 2017. So, I would note the IG, actually the internal watchdog of the DOJ, looked into this issue, decided not to move forward. So what happens now is an exchange of information. We'll get to see sort of what the evidence is. He will, plead not guilty, just like every other defendant. He will be let go on bail pending the trial, and we could see a trial pretty, within the year. But there will be, trust me, Vlad, there will be many emotion to get to prior to this trial.
And just before you go, Caroline, I mean, the statute of limitations was set to expire on this. Is that why some believe that the president was pressuring the U.S. attorney to bring this case before that statute of limitations was over?
Absolutely. It seems pretty clear. That's just another red flag about this case. 5 years, this case has been languishing. It's been run up the flagpole multiple times by multiple prosecutors, all of whom have declined based on the evidence not to move forward with the prosecution. This got in under the wire, and I think this dramatic removal of the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia and then this appointment of somebody new who would indict this case, yes, by all accounts, that indicates, that something drastic needed to be done to get in under the wire of the statute of limitations. All
right, Caroline, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to the President of the United States, who, is this happening live right now? This is tape playback. Okay, so he just spoke moments ago. It's not live, but let's take you over to New York, where the President is headed to the Ryder Cup. Let's listen.
It's not a list, but I think there'll be others. I mean, they're corrupt. These were corrupt, radical left Democrats. Because Comey essentially was he's worse than a Democrat. I would say the Democrats are better than Comey. But no, there'll be others. Look, that's my opinion. They weaponized the Justice Department like nobody in history. What they've done is terrible. And so I hope frankly, I hope there are others, because you can't let this happen to a country.
Will you appoint a permanent U.S. attorney to try this case? Lindsay Halligan has never tried a case.
Well, we'll see, but it's a pretty easy case because, look, he lied. You saw my truth today. He lied. It was yes, no. He didn't say, well, in my opinion. He didn't do a lot of things that maybe he should have, but I don't think he could because he lied. That was a very important question that he was asked, and he wanted to be specific, but he didn't. The only thing that happened to him, he didn't think he'd get caught. But that answer that he gave, that was a very important answer, and it was very, for him, it was a
All
very
right,
good
you're listening
answer.
to the President of the United States. He's on his way to the Ryder Cup in New York. He is leaving the White House, and just moments ago, he paused to take some questions from reporters about the story that we've been talking about, the bombshell that the U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District has indicted former FBI Director James Comey. So let's keep talking about this. Let's go to CBS News congressional correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns, who's joining me from Washington. So, Caitlin, lawmakers' reaction appeared to be along party lines. Give us a breakdown of who's saying what.
Yeah, Vlad, you can kind of predict that this is how this would happen. If you are a Democrat, you are saying that this is an egregious example of presidential abuse of power. If you're a Republican, you're essentially saying what the president just said there, that this is essentially Democrats weaponized the Justice Department first, and now we're holding them accountable. I'm paraphrasing there, but that is essentially what you're hearing from lawmakers on both sides. I do want to point to an example from a couple of them just to kind of talk about the nuances here. You see on your screen there, Senator Warner of Virginia. This is significant because this is where the case is brought. He came out with a very lengthy statement, and I want to read a little bit of it. Donald Trump has made clear that he intends to turn our justice system into a weapon for punishing and silencing his critics. He and Senator Tim Kaine have also talked about the way in which the attorney in this case was a former personal attorney of the president, so underscoring their point of what you're seeing there. By ousting a respected independent prosecutor and replacing him with a partisan loyalist, Trump is undermining one of the most important U.S. attorneys' offices in the country and eroding the rule of law itself. Now, that's the Democratic perspective. From the Republican perspective, they're very much echoing what you heard from the president there. I want to read a little bit from Marjorie Taylor Greene, who essentially has said that this is, essentially a campaign promise fulfilled. She says, Comey helped carry out the Trump-Russia collusion lie, which cost the American people over $32 million and smeared President Trump in his first term. And the media sold that lie every single day, brainwashing Americans to believe the lie. We are hearing that from many Republican members of Congress here. So falling along party lines, but I should note that Congress is not in session right now. There are some Republicans who have, in the past, been able to kind of differentiate between the politics of all of this and, kind of separate that out. So we'll wait to see from some other lawmakers there, but basically a partisan response to what we're seeing.
And Caitlin, the other question, of course, becomes if James Comey is acquitted, all of these lawmakers who are suggesting, alleging that he did what the president is alleging he did, I mean, where does that leave them? It just sort of seems a slippery slope here because the president seems hell-bent on getting a conviction, and what happens if he doesn't?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And how long this could go on also is the question here, right? I mean, Republicans at this point seem satisfied with the president, the Justice Department, at the direction of the president, it seems, taking this step. And this is something that they talked about a lot on the campaign trail. They see this as Democrats started this first and we're responding in kind. So we'll have to wait and see exactly how this pans out, of course.
All right, Caitlin Huey-Burns for us in Washington. Caitlin, thank you, my friend. Appreciate it.